If you made it this far, thank you for joining me for part four. I did not, think I would have to make a part four, but I kind of ran out of time in part three. But at the end of part three of this series, you know, I I started talking about how um, I started bringing up idols and how marriage can be an idol. And when you see that marriage can be an idol, you can put that before God. Now you get to see, or now you start seeing why Paul said, if you are single, you should remain as you are, and why Jesus said, for the sake of the kingdom, and what he said there in Matthew 19, verse 12. I closed my Bible, but you can go back to part three, and I beg you to go back to part three before you finish this, and you would understand what I'm saying. But when you start to see that, wanting to get married can be an idol, now you understand what um, Jesus is saying and what Paul is saying. See, many people say that they don't need Jesus, or they, excuse me, whoa, we need Jesus. But how they don't need to get married because they have Jesus. And so, yes, before I end this, in one statement, that's, completely false. And I'm going to talk about why that's false. Um, but in one sense, it's very true. We should not have any idols before the Lord. And so, in one sense, if that is an idol, you need to lay that down at Jesus' feet. Now, the reason why, that statement is wrong, in a sense, is because, well, it can kind of be a little boastful, a little bit sometimes. Um, I know that there is a song that, says that they, met the perfect, man, and his name is Jesus. And I kind of hesitate that, and, listening to that, I kind of cringe a little bit listening to that song, because in one sense, it's almost like they're boasting about it. And that can be a sense of pride as well. So, in one sense, that can actually be a prideful statement to say. um and then sitting here, I kind of forget the other reason. But there was another reason. But you know just you got to be careful on what you're saying. See, because there's, again, if you're somebody that says, well, I don't need a spouse because I got Jesus, what's the reason why you're saying that? Are you saying that to boast about it? Are you being boastful? Are you being proudful? You know, um, because in a sense, here's another thing um, that I just thought of. You actually do need a spouse because you need a helper. Adam needed Eve. Adam needed he needed a helper. Eve was Adam's helper. And so in this world, you do need a spouse to fill in loneliness. Think about it. I mentioned how, yes, Jesus is saying or applying, he's not really saying, but he is applying that there is a gift of singleness. But remember how in part 3 or part 2 of this series, I was talking about how, in a sense, yes, there is a gift of singleness, but none of us have it. So if none of us have the gift of singleness, if you're single, you're lonely. So, in one sense, you need a spouse to fill that void. Now, in another sense, I can say, and this would be a curveball, in another sense, the reason why you don't really need a spouse is because you got Jesus, and Jesus is supposed to fill that void because he is supposed to be your first love. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of a curveball. It's a little bit of a, like, what, you know? But if you really think about it, in one sense, because Jesus is supposed to be your first love, and he's supposed to be, you know, that void. However, think about this. Think about this. There are many ways that Jesus can fill that void. He can fill that void by giving you a spouse. That's one way. And so, you go back to Adam and Eve. He filled that void for Adam by giving him Eve. And so, like, we can go back and forth, because like, there's many things that pop into my mind, but and there's many things, still to be said, but I'm not going to make a part 5 to this. So I can go on all night and make a whole bunch of parts to this and keep going. But hopefully by now, if you made it to part 4 and you made it this far, hopefully by now you understand what I'm grasping, or you can grasp what I'm saying. I'm getting tongue tied. But hopefully you can grasp what I'm talking about. If you go back and you watch part 1, part 2, part 3, and then this video, I hope and I pray that you understand why, yes, in one sense we don't, but in another sense, yeah, we do. And so I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks for watching.